Hi, welcome to the Business Class ESL Breakroom. We're a company of passionate language trainers and coaches. We're here to share ideas to improve our skills and strengthen the training community. Come in for some inspiration, leave with tips to apply to your sessions today. Hi, our guest today on the Business Class ESL Breakroom is Tracey Gray, and I can assure you we are in for a treat. If you go to traceygray.com, you will see she is an actor, a performer, a communication coach, and I can testify to all that and more. We met as fellow business ESL trainers in Germany once upon a time, and I'm pleased to use the word that many have and do use to describe her, a doer. I've seen Tracey lead jazz bands, start businesses, and organize extraordinary happenings. But today we're calling upon her unique skills as a vocal coach and communication coach. Tracey actively coaches corporations around Europe, including France, in presenting themselves and has been in strong demand since the pandemic. So who better to give us language trainers some pointers on how to be more effective in front of our trainees? Welcome, Tracey.
Thanks, Sue. Nice to see you and speak to you today.
Yeah.
If it is across the internet. I hope the sun is shining in your city here in Frankfurt. We have beautiful blue skies, even if it's only -4.
Oh, we're jealous. We've got gray as usual here.
Yeah, no, for a change, we've got blue skies. But the cold weather I noticed coming here today is keeping everyone indoors, where, of course, they are no doubt, as you and I, in front of a screen, trying to go about their daily life as it now is.
Exactly. And that is why we've asked you here, because we all find ourselves in front of a screen.
Yeah. Long days.
Yeah,
it's a completely new world, one that I have to admit it, I rejected it. So when we went into the first lockdown, and the talk was of doing this online and that online, I said, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm going to wait. I'll just wait. It'll be over soon. It didn't take long. It took until about June, May even, before my clients were knocking at my door saying, so we're working on Teams, we're working on WebEx, we're working on Zoom, can we hook up? And I had to get over this objection within myself and do it. And to be honest, this really shouldn't have been such a big thing. I'm trained as an actress. I've been in front of a camera a lot in my life. The hardest part for me was I coach and train on a very individual level. I like to adapt and sway the core of what I'm coaching to the individual situation of the coachee. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't see how that could work if we weren't in the room together.
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
So, that was the first thing I had to get over, and then work out how to do that. And for me, the big discovery there was what I'm now calling, I guess, virtual presence.
Virtual presence. I like the sound of that.
Like my discovery, which came out of this having to jump over my own shadow.
Mm-hmm.
So when I then joined my clients online, I realized very quickly that although we had some goals for the coaching, what was much more needed was the ability to be present in this little window that we see each other in. Some of my clients, if I had a group, had a company, some of them had the cameras off. Some of them had them on, but you're looking at the ceiling and you're seeing the top of their heads. There was no thought to how they sounded and how they looked. And I very quickly went back to them and said, look, maybe we need to adjust the goals right now and work on this first. Because if this is how you guys are doing business, I don't see this as positive for your company. None of you would want to appear like this in a meeting room.
Mm-hmm.
So why is it okay to do it because we're online? It's almost like, especially at the beginning, everyone was like, well, this is new. Nobody's very good at it. We expect it to break down. And so it was almost okay to be bad at it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's now 2021. We're all still at home. And beyond 2021, we're all still going to be home, because even if we can go to the office, this is not going away. We're going to be doing a lot more communication in this way.
Right.
And so we need to be good at it, because it's not a new thing to say communication is 60% tone of voice and body language. These are statistics that we've known for years.
Right.
Well, body language is now extremely limited because we have the screen and we only see a certain amount of our bodies. And then we have tone of voice.
Right.
So suddenly this element has been magnified. It's so much more important.
It's the last frontier.
It's the last frontier. And still people are only really focused on what they're saying. And yeah, I'm experiencing conflicts within some of my clients' companies, because literally somebody has said something in a meeting, often camera off, without thinking about what they're communicating.
Mm.
Maybe they thought about what they said, but they didn't think about what they actually transmitted in the communication.
Mm-hmm.
And so that awareness needs to grow. And of course, if you're a trainer, every instruction you give needs to have that awareness. Because when we say something, we need to speak with purpose. That's basically it. We need to think, we need to speak with purpose every time we say something. This is what an actor does. You know, when we want to move the audience to feel something or think something, or even just to believe that those lines belong to them. If we have the line, I don't know, we just want to say, I was hungry. How about that? I was hungry. If we're going to say it in order to persuade someone to feed us, or convince someone that was the reason why I did something, or to encourage them to eat with me, or motivate them to cook, or just make the announcement that I'm hungry, or you want to blame someone that because you're hungry, or excuse yourself because you're hungry, or defend yourself, every one of those purposes for communication will change the tone of your voice.
Of course.
You're really clear on what your purpose is. So I don't need to coach people on how to change their voice to sound like they're defending themselves or sound like they're motivating someone. If you're clear in your mind what your purpose is, that's what will come out.
And taking notes. These are great nuggets.
And so too often, I say we as coaches, we as colleagues, we as parents, we as people, we start talking before we are aware of our purpose for the communication. And this is obviously not only useful in avoiding conflict and misunderstanding. George Bernard Shaw famously said back then, the biggest single problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. This not only helps in that instance, but of course it is so much more effective if we're coaching online, if we're training somebody online, the coachee understanding what it is they want us to do quickly helps with the energy that gets lost in this online communication. We can't sit in a room with someone. I can coach for 3 hours in a room. I can't do that online.
Yeah.
So coaching has to be far more effective. I have to pick my words, keep it concise, and be purposeful in the way I say something. That way I save time. Coach talking time, of course, goes down. The energy goes down. that's used to communicate something, and we can get on with what it is I want the coachee to understand or to do. And it's just simpler. The stress levels are lower, and there's more time for something else, which is silence.
Mm-hmm.
But also do not allow willingly in the room. And again, I'm talking now about the virtual room and the real room. It's the scariest thing to do, is to allow silence to exist, because oh my gosh, anything could happen in that silence. And there's an anxiety. But if you allow silence, if you allow room for reflection and sensing, you'll get so much more from your coachees, because it gives them the space to give you something back.
That is beautiful and absolutely mirrors what I've been learning and developing and training and learning a new form of coaching language, neuro-language training. But it's all about the silence is very powerful. And if we're brave enough to allow for it,
absolutely,
the learners need to think. And
we don't get the time for it.
Yeah.
Often in the classroom, again, sometimes just to fill the silence and make us appear more dynamic and motivating, we'll explain something possibly 3 to 4 different times, using different language to try and reach different people in the way they receive messages or the way they understand you, which obviously has its merits. If you only have a short amount of time, you only have 40 minutes online. If the teacher's going to spend that much time explaining or communicating something, the actual time for production for the student to achieve something is seriously limited. So you're reducing the quality of your coaching enormously.
Mm-hmm.
I do often script what I want to use and what I want to say. I do that by speaking it. So I record myself just on my phone.
Oh, great idea.
I just record myself on my phone, listen back. How did that sound? If I just got that instruction, how did that sound? Could I be much more efficient with my words? Does it sound like I'm trying to convince them? Because that's my purpose. I want to convince them that this is the next. So often the work I do, because it's voice, it requires a lot of courage. Some of the things I ask people to do, it puts them outside of their comfort zone. But that's, of course, where progress happens. Right. And so quite often the purpose of my instruction is to encourage and motivate them to try something. Mm-hmm. And this is a problem. Then I might use too much language to try and make it sound fun. And before I know it, I've been talking 10 minutes and they haven't even started the exercise.
And there's a great parallel to language learning, because people get nervous and shameful for trying the sounds that sound funny to them. It's the same idea.
Exactly. Now, what I've noticed with the online coaching, there's a big bonus. Microphones can go on and off. Cameras can go on and off. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's much more effective if cameras are on and we have the visual. Mm-hmm. But if I'm going to ask a coachee of mine to do something that is going to maybe make them feel a little uncomfortable, because I'm going to ask them to do something big with their voice, or something they wouldn't normally do with their voice, something maybe that might make them feel like they're being childish or stupid. Great. Everybody's got their microphones off. And actually the courage levels have grown. And it's wonderful. And so I try to make the instruction simple and clear. Mm-hmm. I'd like you to all say the text that I've given you. I've given everyone 3 sentences. And I would like you to say it in a voice as high as you can. Give it a go. And just with my voice and my face, which is the only thing they've got, really, really try to encourage them to do it. Now, if I was in the room, I would probably say, give it a go. No, really, it's fine. It's going to be so much fun. And I would say other motivating things. There's no time or space for that.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I can see they're trying it and sometimes they're not. Then to make them feel like I'm not watching them, I will often actually stand away from my camera.
Mm-hmm.
I can see them, but they don't see me.
Uh-huh.
It's different to me turning off my camera. They know I'm there, but they don't feel like they're being watched.
These are fantastic tips.
So I'll move out of the screen. I can still see them all on my screen. I can watch them and observe. And then, so that they really don't feel like they're being watched, my keyboard is somewhere else, and I'll write in the chat what the next exercise is. And I can watch them move to the next exercise. But they don't feel observed. They feel like they've got the space again, the silence and the space to try this out for themselves. And then maybe I'll write another one in the chat. And then you can see them reading it, and then they're trying it. And we're so much more into production.
Absolutely.
Rather than me giving instructions and instructions and instructions. And then, of course, I'll say, okay, so anybody have anything to share regarding what happened there? Yeah, depending on the size of the room. If I have 20 people in the room, I'll ask people to write a word in the chat. If I've got 8 people in the room, I'll ask someone to share how they felt. And yeah, it's just this presence. So the voice is really instrumental in that encouragement. Now, if we're in a meeting situation and we're encouraging people to speak English in a business situation, it's the same. We don't need a lot of words to say what we want to say. We can use quite simple language. But again, if we're purposeful in what we want to communicate, like I said, we go back to I was hungry. If we're purposeful in knowing what we want to say, you'll find that people's intonation actually is then more correct than if they just focus on the words and say the words. Now, when we're teaching language, although I don't do that as much, I do a lot of pronunciation coaching. Of course, rhythm of language is a massive part of being able to understand someone.
Absolutely.
And if you actually encourage your coachee to think about why they're saying the word, what is it they want to communicate, you'll find 50% increase and improvement in their intonation and rhythm of language immediately.
Really? It's a natural side effect of that.
There's just a way we use our voice if we want to communicate something specific. If you ask someone to say that as if you're trying to defend yourself. And suddenly they'll use the right intonation. And then they'll realize maybe that they said it differently to the way they said it before. And then there's a moment of reflection for self-correction. And you didn't have to say anything.
And do you find this, if I may ask, even with people who kind of still have the pronunciation wrong? I mean,
because I've got two clients at the moment, and it's purely pronunciation.
Right.
And of course, they're here in Germany, and we're working massively on the W's and the V's and the TH's and the common errors. And those are tidying up. And now what I'm hearing much more is the emphasis on the wrong part of the word.
Yes.
However, if I get them to say a whole sentence where their purpose is clear, they are still easier to understand, even if on one word or the other, the intonation isn't quite right. The flow of the phrase and the whole sentence is clearer.
Oh, wow.
And suddenly they're easier to understand.
Oh, my goodness.
But I have to get them away from thinking about what they're saying and into why they're saying it.
The why, that's fabulous.
The why, it is. It's purposeful speaking. And whether it's in your own language or in a foreign language, if we just remind our coachees that it doesn't, get them to do it in their own language as well. They'll be far more effective. And just to support that little moment, actually my favorite quote of all, which I have on the footnote of all my emails, is from Maya Angelou, who wrote, "Words mean more than is set down on paper. It takes the human voice to infuse them with deeper meaning."
Mm.
Now, you can take that as something deep and literary, but every little interaction we have, whether you're asking someone if they would like a cup of tea, or I don't know, the sentence like, you didn't make tea then. You didn't make tea then can sound, with the wrong nuance, like an accusation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
But it could be just, oh, well, you didn't have time. Yeah. But if your purpose isn't clear, it's going to sound, because of the structure of that language, it's going to sound like an accusation.
Right. Right.
And these little moments are happening a lot. And we have to just be more mindful. We'll be far more efficient and effective as coaches. And of course, we're modeling then that for our coachees.
Yes, if I can just recap, I loved a couple of things you've said, well, everything, but one thing where you gave the example of just a simple give it a go rather than a big long introduction.
Yeah, just give it a go.
Give it a go.
And then give them space. And one or two people will get on with it, and one or two people will procrastinate or need to take a breath or two. That's okay. Everyone's got their own tempo. It's just much harder to feel that across the screen than when you're in the room. And this is what I needed then to sense and work out. But I first needed to teach my coachees more about their own virtual presence in order for us to communicate well. And that was also a little bit about thinking about tempo of speech. I've got obviously I've got my voice activator. It's about resonance, it's about tempo, good articulation. The thing that's missing with most people with the online communication is energy in the voice. Oh my goodness. Everyone sounds tired. And they probably are, but everyone sounds tired. And so I have all these exercises that I do when I'm sitting. I like to stand and coach, even online. But if I'm seated as I am now, I will do little knee lifts. Or rock my feet. If my feet are on the floor, rock from my heels to my toes. Back, lift my toes, and then lift my heels. And just keep that rhythm going while you're talking. And what it does is it activates just some small muscles in the lower abdominal, and also helps circulation and airflow. Excuse me. It helps circulation and it helps the airflow. And just imagine that when you breathe in, your air actually falls all the way down to your feet. It doesn't stop here. It doesn't even stop in the bottom of your lungs. It actually flows down into your legs. And you have to do this in order to pump it back up again. And actually, you'll find that the muscles in your legs start to work if you just keep doing it. I've got so many companies in Frankfurt where I know clients are doing this under the table when we're in meetings.
That's fantastic.
But it also releases stress and tension in other parts of the body because it takes your mind away from it. It's almost like a little meditative rocking in your feet. Nobody can see you do it under the table.
So you're seated and you're just rolling from the ball of your foot, so the heel to the ball and back.
Yeah, lift the heel, lift the toes. Lift the heel, lift the toes. It's not only good for circulation in the legs, but actually if you do it while you're talking, you find slowly that it releases tension that you're holding, because we hold tension in the most ridiculous places while we're... Have you ever noticed how you hold your knees when you clean your teeth?
Yeah.
Why do we do that? Yeah. And so when we're communicating, especially if there's an element of, I don't want to say stress, but stress because you want to achieve something with that communication, we'll start holding tensions in places. And the other one I do is actually to do little figures of 8 with your hands. Now, this is really good online because, of course, you can take them down below the camera.
Yeah.
And nobody can see you doing it.
Yeah.
But if you are able to actually keep breathing while you do that with your hands, And you'll find that after a while, if you can get a rhythm going, your breath and your voice starts to follow the rhythm of your hands. And it's a bit, and all the energy, excess energy that you have just flows out through your fingers. So it's a little bit like some people have fidget balls, or, you know, little, like you see people wobbling their knee because they need some kind of movement in their body. Yeah.
Right.
This way you take that movement into your own control. You control that movement. And it's got a really meditative, soothing effect that also then allows the body to send any stress it has or tension it has into that part of the body that's moving and that can leave you.
So this is something you do for yourself when you are the trainer, but also would you recommend that your trainees do this for themselves if they're in
Absolutely. I teach it to my trainees, but I do it too.
That's a wonderful thing to bring to your trainees, because they are all
and it's a lovely way of distracting. If you've got someone who's nervous, say, look, I want you to do this while you're speaking.
Yeah.
And the purpose of this exercise is that you do not stop moving your hands. So this is what I want you to focus on, is your hands. Now give me the text. And it's incredible, because suddenly the focus on the text and whether it's right leaves, and the language flows because they're dancing with their hands.
So if they have a presentation or a sort of introduction or a difficult conversation to prepare for, they can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just fabulous. Wow.
Yeah. I've got much more physical ones as well, which involves a spinal rotation that you can do seated or standing. And this is part of what I call my toilet exercises. So if I'm preparing someone to do a speech or speak at a meeting, whenever I start with someone, I always say, so what do you normally do before you speak in front of people? And they say, I always go to the toilet, to the bathroom. So I say, great. So dare I ask what you do when you're there? I speak into the mirror and I prepare myself. I said, yeah, but what else do you do to prepare yourself? So I prepared, I've got this routine I've got 6 different exercises for the bathroom, for the business speaker in their bathroom. And depending on what their needs are, I will give my coachees 3 exercises to do in the bathroom. So that when they go to the bathroom, I'm sure they also need to go to the bathroom, but they can actually, in that little cubicle, without anybody knowing, do some exercises that really will help prepare them, mind, body, and voice.
Fabulous. Those are great ideas.
And there are often things like this. Yeah.
Yeah, like the figures.
Usually something that releases the breath. Voice is breath. Breath is voice.
We keep coming back to the breath, and we
keep going back to the breath. Yeah.
We as trainers don't think about it much. I think about it because I hear about it in meditation and my personal interests. But as a trainer, you don't often hear someone telling you, okay, what's happening with breath as you train.
The most effective trick I have with, actually, I have to say with male coachees, is what I call the Tom Jones. So I've got the Tom Jones and the Shakira, and for the men, the Tom Jones works, which is basically that they imagine they are doing a little hula hoop. So it's literally just while they're talking to swivel their hips.
Okay, like they're playing with the hula.
Not every man is able to do this because they're quite stiff. So first you've got to practice going in different directions. So, but the nice thing about this is if you do this, it doesn't matter. You can do this online. Yeah, nobody has to even show themselves.
Yeah,
it causes laughter.
Yes, which is
nothing better than that for relaxing everyone. And then if you ask them all to do the text again while focusing on keeping the movement going, it's very difficult to keep a movement going while you're talking. If I watch anyone, I ask them to continue a movement, their focus goes back to what they're saying. They can't keep the movement going.
Yeah.
And this is a blockage. If everything was flowing and the breath was flowing, then the movement really shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
I know that my students are good with their language and good with what they're saying when they can keep a simple movement going while talking to me. Now, this, of course, has an impact on how they present themselves physically, because that means their body is relaxed and gestures become natural and authentic as well.
Mm-hmm.
The effect of the hips is amazing. Nearly everyone has a change in pitch in their voice when they're tense, nervous about talking. Women tend to go even higher than men, but men also tend to, their voices get thinner. When they do this hip swivel, suddenly the lower resonances return. Their breath falls back into their lower abdomen, and you get these wonderful booming voices come out. And often, I mean, I try as much as I can to record students, with or without them knowing. I do tell them at the beginning of the coaching that I will record them sometimes without them knowing, but that's just so I can really show them. Because the moment they know I'm recording,
yes,
the exercise is out the window. Yeah, it's performance time. But sometimes with this exercise, the coachee hears it themselves, can hear the difference in their voice.
Yeah.
And the idea then is to keep using this exercise. You can do a figure of 8 with your hips. You can do circles and figures of 8s with any part of the body is wonderful. It's eternal.
Hence the Shakira.
That's harder, because that's then the rib cage.
Okay.
It's a little bit more skill, yeah. But it's great for releasing the tension between the shoulder blades, which is where a lot of us have that too.
Absolutely.
But I've helped many people with the hip thing. Of course, you cannot stand in front of a group of people swiveling your hips. Well, you can. That communicates something very different. But to take it away, all you need to do is if before they talk, bathroom exercise, go to the bathroom, do it with you swiveling your hips, and then take the muscle memory of doing it into your situation where you have to talk, and just remember that feeling and the muscles. And what happens is the body then starts to do it, but on a minute level. You can just feel the movement. It's not visible to the eye, but you can feel that little rotation in your lower spine. Mm-hmm. But it's so small no one can see it. But you can feel it. You know it's there, and it still has that effect of releasing the muscles and the tension.
Amazing. And thus releasing the language skill.
Exactly. Again, releasing the language skill. And let it flow. So often when people come to me with language or vocal problems, there is no problem. There's a blockage somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah.
That's it.
And so again, giving the space for that is really valuable. You can unlock the potential of yourself and your coachees really fast. And there's nothing more encouraging for a coachee when the coach themselves will admit, I need to do this too. This is how I do it for me.
Yeah.
To admit that you also, you're not the expert, you're not the guru, but you've overcome these problems, and this is how you overcome it. Now I'm sharing that with you. There's nothing more motivating than that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
May I ask maybe specifically about issues of confidence? I mean, this is all broadly on confidence as well, but have you ever had anybody who's just so timid or so intimidated? What do you recommend in these cases?
It's probably the most common reason people come to me for coaching.
Right.
And that's sometimes native speakers.
Yeah.
Or I am teaching in French or German. Mm-hmm. Their target language is also their native language. It's purely anxiety of speaking in front of people. Mm-hmm. Of course, that grows when it's a foreign language.
Right.
Even more. We don't have, that confidence. I'm going to take us back to breath.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Breath is always the way. If there's a tension, you can't breathe. The breath can't flow, which means you also can't think. Mm-hmm. And then when you can't think, you then lose what it was you want to say. and then that's the reason you're terrified in the first place.
Right.
Yeah. So it's just key. Yeah, it's that. Of course, there are people who have lack of confidence about their pronunciation and whether they'll be understood. Again, I go back to speak with purpose. And again, they hear themselves the difference. Yeah. So the only way to overcome fear is practice.
Yeah.
You have to find a platform and a way where you can practice talking in front of people. It's the only way. You can rehearse with a coach all you like, and you can breathe all you like and have wonderful breathing. But until you put it under the stress test, and I've got a couple of stress tests that I can do in class, but at the end of the day, you have to then do it in front of people and experience it not going wrong, or experience it going wrong and overcoming it.
That's key.
That's more it, because things always go wrong. Yeah. Of course, your audience doesn't know what was right. So there's a very high chance that if something went wrong, your audience didn't even notice it.
Right.
Yeah. They don't know what the script is. Only you know that something went wrong. They think it was great. So experiencing that and having that feedback. And I always recommend then really small things. So having to speak for 2 to 3 minutes, maybe on a meeting, or present something for a couple of minutes. For 1 or 2 of my students is a massive thing. We'll spend 2 hours preparing a 3-minute moment in an online meeting. Absolutely. But once that goes well, then try to find another opportunity to put yourself in a situation where you can do that again a couple of weeks later.
Right.
And try and keep a momentum and a regularity. And that it is the only way. And if you don't have that in your work environment, then find something like Toastmasters.
Yes,
or
I recommend.
A place where you can go and practice in an environment that is supportive and gives you structure. I've got one client at the moment, it just doesn't work for time. He's got a small child, and he needs to be more at home, and with the pandemic and stuff, it's just not working for him. So he started by he reads to his child every evening, and he'd never done it really with any thought. He just reads. The child needs to be read to. And then he realized that the child doesn't actually care too much about what the content is. Doesn't actually care what language is or whether they understand it. And so he started playing with his voice and doing in both English and his native language, German, texts that meant he had to play with his voice, play with voices, play with making it more daring and more scary or more playful, and just exploring his voice to see what he could do. And I encouraged him to record one of the evenings. And a few weeks later, he said he did it and he said it was fun. A few weeks later, he did one that obviously he was really proud of because he wanted to share it with me. That was a big moment. He wanted to share it with me. And he'd then come up with an idea for doing a social event at his work where they would do a radio play. He'd been inspired by it. And so through doing something creative, he's going to now create his own stage for overcoming his speaking and using his voice in front of people. So
that is just beautiful.
I was so proud of him.
And what our families can lead us to even. And
exactly.
I have several learners that are young fathers as well, and they talk about reading to their kids. And I suggested the Room on the Broom or stories with good rhyming. But if I may, I'm going to use that idea and really suggest that they read aloud in English to their children.
Yeah, because the son just thought it was funny because, again, the son isn't listening to what you're saying. He's listening to the purpose behind. So you could read instruction manual to a child, but in a mysterious voice, as if the witch is going to come into the forest any minute. And for them, their fantasy will take them somewhere.
Yeah. And it also combats that age-old problem of I don't have time to do my progress work for English. And I say, well, okay, but if you're going to spend time with your kid, why not read with them?
Yeah.
But Tracey, if I may, I know it's cutting close to an hour. I don't want to use your whole afternoon, but if we could go back to this idea of vocal presence, and maybe do you have any either top 3 do's or top 3 don'ts as a trainer, or either mistakes you've seen people make that they really should be aware of, or the opposite?
Yeah, taking time. I've also been participating in a lot of online coaching, partly because the subject maybe interested me, but also to observe other coaches.
Great idea.
That's a tip right there. Register a lot of the online coaching for something completely different. So something you wouldn't normally register. You can go on to do, there's people doing play readings, but there's also people doing coachings for everything under the planet now.
It's true. Yeah.
And I like to observe the coaches and make notes of what they do well and what they don't do well. And the thing that people are still working on is this stillness. We only have this little box here. Yeah. And within this box, so to be aware of as a coach, if you're in the screen. So virtual presence is a mixture of visual and voice. If you are filling a third of your screen, you are present. If you are filling less than a third of your screen, you are not present. There is much more of your surrounding space present than you. So when you're thinking, and if you want to be even more present, then you fill half your screen if you want to make a point. Now, if you're that close, every move you make is magnified. So if I went to have a drink now, I would probably distract everyone else in the meeting because of this movement. If I would like to take a cup, however, I can make myself less present and have a drink, and it wouldn't be as distracting to everyone in the room.
By just leaning back,
taking yourself back to maybe a quarter of your screen, all of your movements will be less present. So you can. People say, oh, I don't want to be watched all the time. In a meeting room, I liken this a little bit. Being in a meeting room, I liken a little bit more to like being in the theater. When you're in the meeting room, there's a lot of things to look at. You can look at your notes. You can look at your phone. Most people do. You can look at your coffee. You can look at the person speaking. You can look at the presentation. You can look out the window. You can look at your nail beds. Yeah, there's so much you can look at. And everyone is doing that. Focus isn't in one place. If you're in the theater, you can look at the people on stage. You can look at the lights. You can look at the audience. You can look at the set. You can look at your phone. But you can look at many other things. It's like being in the meeting room. Now, suddenly on screen, it's like you're captive, or you feel definitely like you're captive. The camera tells you what to look at, much more like a film. You do have some control over that. Bring yourself in for a close-up, and you are very present, and your presence and what you're communicating will be much stronger. Take it back to a third. That's a nice presence. I'm talking to you now. You can see my hands, but my facial expression is very clear. If I go any further back, I blend into the background. It's a lovely listening position. Now, yeah. So if you want to listen and not be as present, then this is a good, and like I said, as a coach, sometimes I will just leave and stand to the side. So that's 3 or 4 levels of being present on camera that we should mindfully be controlling. The same way we'd get close or stand further away from the people in the room. Vocally, tempo, tempo, tempo. We cannot speak at the same tempo as in the room because we don't have the other signals that people need to understand. So keep it calmer, keep it a little slower, use silence. And more than before, I know we have to do this in the room, but more than before, check understanding. Ask the leading question to make sure that the communication has taken place. Don't just throw out what you want to do and say, okay, off you go. Have someone in the room or ask for some sign back that everyone has understood. And that's not a thumbs up. That's some kind of feedback that to repeat. So can somebody tell me what I just asked you to do? Language practice too. Or what were the 3 keywords I used in my instruction to you? What are the 3 things you heard me say? Because we don't hear every word, but which 3 things stuck in your mind when I just gave you the instruction? What do you remember? And then you know whether you've communicated.
Right.
Yeah. Check that.
Fabulous.
Vocal quality is nice to have. Think about your pitch. If you're a female coach, even in the room, we can sometimes be deemed as very high speakers, and people say they have difficulty understanding. You can absolutely increase your chest resonances to give you a much more round voice that gives you a natural volume without pushing. Great way to do this is to chew and hum at the same time. So
how does one do that?
And really stretch your face at the same time, and do that on all different pitches. Just that, if you do that for 5 minutes and put the timer on, really keep doing it for 5 minutes, you'll feel a little lightheaded actually, because it will activate breath, but you'll also feel like you've had some kind of massage machine going on your chest. It'll tingle everywhere.
Wow.
And immediately you'll find your voice sits just a little lower, especially if you hum just a little lower than where you think you normally speak. Just literally a semitone lower. Immediately you'll have just stretch and hum and chew. And you've got yourself a resonance exercise that warms up your voice for a resonant and natural volume on your microphone.
Which I could imagine would be really powerful for a woman. Let's say you're a trainer and you've got a lot of male energy and a lot of, I don't want to say bravado in the room, or you're feeling a bit intimidated by some, and you want to go in with some power and some presence and some authority.
Absolutely.
Good.
That definitely helps when most of your clients are male. The other thing, a little tip from Shakespeare, vowels tend to express more emotion, and consonants tend to communicate much more the purpose. So if you're really trying to get a point across, really aim for hitting the consonants. It will also slow you down. That's another tip for immediately improving pronunciation. They aim for the consonants in the sentence.
And that means pronounce them clearly.
Just hit them. Just aim for them. Like, all I want is a proper cup of coffee. Yeah. See, the emotion is in the all. All I want. It's very emotional.
Wow. Yeah.
All I want is much more sachlich, much more to the point and direct. All I want is a proper cup of coffee. Now, if you really hit every consonant, you cannot speak quickly. So it's another way of controlling tempo. So depending on what it is you want to express, again, what's your purpose? You can actually use that as well. And we could go deeper into, I do something called sound scripting, where if you focus on the adverbs rather than the nouns, rather than the verbs, you also communicate something different.
Goodness,
if you focus on the verbs, you give them the feeling of momentum, of motivation and movement. If you focus and stress the nouns, you paint a picture. If you focus on the adverbs, it's much more emotional.
That just sounds like so much fun.
But these are all different ways of developing people's language skills in a different way to focusing on the grammar and the vocabulary and all the things we tend to focus on. Yeah.
But I think this is so timely, Tracey, because we are learning, especially because of the situation we're in, we are so much more than language trainers. Mm-hmm. And I think to keep ourselves relevant in this changing society, we need to know that and to know how to harness that to stay relevant, because business people need communication skills.
Yes, and right now I think they're all a little overwhelmed with all the other things they have to adapt to, and so I'm hearing all the time, oh, we need this, but they don't yet always have the time to engage in it. Right. But as these other new processes settle down, it will become more and more a priority. It really will.
All the better for a language trainer to be aware of that, and to be, we can now be honing our skills to be ready for that demand.
Use it as your special juice, to set yourself aside as something other than what people would assume is just a language.
Right.
Yeah. It's communication.
Yeah.
It's about the whole and not just that one element.
So much more rounded than I think what I've had thought of traditional communication skills, though this element of theater and voice and adds so much dimension.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has been so enriching, Tracey.
Deep subject.
It is.
A favorite subject of mine.
How can people get more of you? Where would you like them to go if they are interested for their companies or for themselves? If I don't know.
Can communicate with me. I'm contactable through my website, of course. I'm also on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm. Tracey Gray, Grey.
Grey, that's right. I'm always happy to speak to companies. I mean, sometimes I'll be honest. Sometimes people come to me with a goal, and I'm not their coach. Mm-hmm. I know I'm not their coach, but I usually know who I can forward them to. Mm-hmm. So I'm good to communicate with other coaches, because if I know other great coaches as well, then I can also offer my clients the right coach for them. Mm-hmm. But I'm always happy to work with other coaches on improving their delivery or with companies who want their communication and their performance in this new space to be effective, because we still need to move forward in business. We can't just put this on ice. If we're not effective, if we're not present in this Zoom space, in this online space, mm-hmm. then we have no power, excuse me, we have no power to influence our careers, to really effectively do our jobs and fulfill our roles for our companies. Mm-hmm. So nobody should underestimate this. This is about also our futures, not just dealing with now. It's about progression. It's about development. And like I said, in the next decade, this skill will be one that human resources are looking for.
That's it. Listen up, people. Listen, trainers, because I think you're offering us real words of wisdom. Yeah. And Tracey, you do your training in English, in French, and in German, if needed.
I do work in all three languages, yeah. Obviously, I'm a native speaker English. My German is extremely fluent, now after 22 years of living here and working in the language. And I've been a French speaker since I was a teenager, and I work in French as well. I have a few French clients.
Fantastic.
Working both in French and in English. I do find it really useful if I'm working with French speakers, just the fact that I understand their language. Mm-hmm. So I understand where their difficulties are coming from, right. Because I know the rhythm and I know the pronunciation that is native to them, which I think is probably something quite different that I can offer, because I can do that in German as well. And that helps with European-wide companies, means I can work for them in several different offices, which is nice.
That's brilliant. But you have just offered us just such a wealth of information and tips, and really, I use the expression a lot, but food for thought. It really is super, super food for thought. So I Thank you. And we'd love to
Thank you for the invitation. And great to see you again.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And yeah, this was fun. Thank you.
It's brilliant. So all the best. And
Thank you.
Hope to have you again on the ESL Breakroom.
Anytime. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us in the Business Class ESL Breakroom, the podcast designed to bring business English trainers useful ideas, inspiration, and conversation that motivates. Follow us on Instagram at business_class_language and subscribe to the ESL Breakroom playlist on Spotify, Deezer, or Apple Music for new episodes. See you next time.